All right, this is part one of a series of videos I'm making on how to use Digital Performer to record your MIDI project for your internship. So what we're looking at right here is Digital Performer that has been loaded with a new project. And to do that, you would just go to the File menu, choose New, and then New over here. And what that does is it loads a default template. And the default template in this case is going to create a series of MIDI tracks. There's 4 MIDI tracks, and this other special type of track called a MIDI instrument track. And what this track does is actually play the sounds. These are what actually feed notes to this. So let's talk a little bit about that. So the window we're looking at right now is a tracks window. We're in a view called the consolidated window view. So we can look at different windows just by clicking on tabs, very much like a web browser. So we can look at the sequence editor window where you can actually get into changing the notes and things. On the mixing board where you can control the volume of any MIDI track. And then there's a MIDI editor, which is a good place to go in and get into the details of manipulating notes, moving them to whatever time you want and whatever pitch you want. Up here we have the transport window. It has a stop button, a rewind button all the way to the beginning, play button, and now you're hearing the metronome as I play because this metronome icon over here has been turned on. If I rewind, hit play, without that you don't hear anything. If I turn it on, you hear the click. So oftentimes you're going to want to record with a metronome so that you can try to play with it. And even if you don't really play with it, you can actually fix that by quantizing the notes, which means you can move the notes to where they should be as far as playing on the grid or on the beat. The transport window also has a readout here in measures and beats. This will change depending on what the time signature is here. If you don't see exactly this, you want to go underneath the setup menu and make sure you're looking under the time formats and that there's the measures have been selected under time formats. So then you'll see that. You also see measures down here and all these other windows. So the way MIDI works is that MIDI just produces notes, and the notes can be assigned to different instruments. So when you play a MIDI keyboard, it's not outputting any sound, it's just outputting notes. And those notes can get recorded as, various notes at various pitches and what we call velocities, which is how hard or loud the notes are going to be. But in order to hear that MIDI note, you would have to feed it to something that can make a sound. In this case, we're using an instrument called Contact, which is a sampling instrument. And if you look over here, this is what it looks like. So Contact has many, many different instruments that you can select. And what I've done here on the default project is selected 4 instruments, each one assigned to a different MIDI track and channel. So here are MIDI tracks down here. And in order to get Contact to play the drum sounds, I have to feed it out a particular output channel, it's called. In this case, if you look on the output here, the last number is the MIDI channel. And so the drums are being fed out MIDI channel 1. And sure enough, if we come over here and look at the studio drummer here, it's assigned to MIDI channel 1 here. That means any signal, any notes that are being fed out to that MIDI channel will play the drums. So let's check that out. Here's some drum sounds. That's the sounds that are being played from the keyboard. And since this track is in record, it's going to take whatever MIDI notes coming from the keyboard and feed them out MIDI channel 1 to whatever instrument's assigned there. Now, if I were to put the second track in to record, now whatever I play on the keyboard is going to go out this MIDI channel 2, which just happens to be assigned to the bass sound here. So there's the bass. So if I play the keyboard now, we're getting bass sounds. And if I were to go down and change that to the third one, it would be keyboard, a Rhodes keyboard. And finally, of course, we have a guitar track too, and we can play guitar sounds. And that actually is a strumming pattern sample. So this is actually has a pattern mode you can change here, different strumming patterns. We'll talk more about that later. So it's important to realize that you have to have the MIDI tracks assigned to MIDI channels that feed to an instrument that has MIDI instruments assigned to those channels. So Contact is a very powerful MIDI sample instrument that can have up to 16 different sounds. And there's various ways to find the sounds you want in Contact. There are these different tabs up here. Primary ones you're probably going to want to look at is libraries, which are sort of collections of different types of sounds, like, Balinese gamelan instruments and pianos. Or I like the database even better because it categorizes them by type of instruments. So we can see that we have, if we want to see all the piano and key instruments, we have these choices, and then these banks, and then these presets, organ sounds, etc. So if you wanted to add a new patch of string sounds, we could choose maybe bowed strings down here. And we want a whole ensemble of strings, so we'll click on the ensemble. And these are the different banks that we can use. We're going to try the orchestral bank, and we'll come down here to string ensemble. And this is the preset. So if I double click on that, at the very bottom below my guitar patch, now I'm going to have a string ensemble patch, instrument, I should say. And if you notice, this is automatically assigned to the next MIDI channel, which is MIDI channel 5. Now, if I play something now, I'm just getting drum sounds because my first track is in record, but I don't have a track for the string sounds, so I need to create one. And there's several ways you can create a new track. An easy way is to right-click right here and say Add Track and choose MIDI track. Now, you could also go up to the Project menu and choose Add Track, MIDI track. And you also notice there's a key equivalent where you can use a key command, Shift Command M, to create a MIDI track. Those are all different methods for doing the same thing. Okay, so now we have a track and record, but it's not going to where we want it to. It's going out this weird output. We want it to go to the next channel of Contact, right? So we want to assign that to Contact up here to MIDI channel 5. And by doing that, now if I play the keyboard, we get string sounds. And we might want to label that track, so we could click on it and hold down Option and click on it again. Now we can type in strings, and we have a string MIDI track. But let's say we want it to be next to the other ones on the other side of Contact. These on the very far left here, we can click on that and drag it to wherever we want. It does have the same color as the drum, so let's make this a different color by clicking on that and choosing a different color. How about orange? No, actually we're using orange. Let's use red. So the strings are in red, and actually the notes now, when you record on these tracks, will have the different colors. So it makes it easy to distinguish what's what if you know the color that's assigned to each of the instrument sounds. Okay, so that's essentially it, how to get things started. Now the next thing we're going to talk about in the next module is how to record parts into each of these tracks, and I'll see you in the next module. Thanks.